Lena had learned to survive in the shadows of the city, where the cold streets were her home and the crowded sidewalks were both a danger and a place of refuge. She moved carefully, keeping her eyes alert for anything that might threaten her or offer a chance for something better. Every morning began the same way, waking up under a bridge or in the narrow corner of an abandoned building, rubbing the sleep from her eyes and hoping the day would not be as harsh as the night had been. Her stomach ached with hunger, and the chill in the air seemed to seep into her bones, but she had grown used to it. Pain had become her constant companion, and yet she had learned to keep moving. The city was unforgiving, especially for someone like Lena. People hurried past her, eyes fixed on their phones, their briefcases, or the lives they were rushing to. She had become invisible in the chaos, and that invisibility was both a shield and a curse. It kept her safe from those who might harm her, but it also reminded her of what she was missing: a family, a home, a place where she could simply belong. But she had dreams that kept her alive, small sparks of hope that refused to die. She dreamed of a day when she would no longer have to beg or scavenge, when she could sit at a table with food and warmth and not have to fear the dangers of the streets. Today, Lena's day began with the usual scavenging. She moved quickly through the alleys, her hands searching for anything that could be useful: food, discarded clothing, or small change hidden in corners. She had become skilled at finding what others overlooked, her eyes sharp and her instincts sharper. The city had taught her to notice the smallest details: the glint of a coin under a bench, the slight rustle of paper in a trash can that hinted at food, the patterns of people moving through the streets. Each discovery, no matter how small, was a victory. As she made her way toward the main street, Lena passed by a park where children laughed and played, their faces glowing with innocence and joy. She stopped for a moment, watching them, feeling a pang of longing. She remembered a time when she had gone to school, when she had friends and teachers who cared. But those days were gone, swallowed by circumstances she could not control. Now she only watched from a distance, careful not to get too close, careful not to hope too much. The wind picked up and Lena pulled her thin jacket tighter around her. She had learned to layer her clothing for warmth, even if the pieces were mismatched and worn. Her shoes were tattered, but they had carried her over miles of pavement and through nights that seemed endless. Every step was a test of endurance, and every day was a challenge she met with quiet determination. As she moved along the street, Lena noticed people hurrying past, their faces drawn and serious. Oblivious to the girl navigating the edges of their world, she kept to the shadows, slipping past crowds, listening to the sounds of the city: car horns, distant sirens, the chatter of people in conversation. Each sound reminded her that life was moving on, whether she was part of it or not. Lena's first stop was the corner where a small bakery sometimes threw away unsold bread. She approached cautiously, knowing that other people sometimes waited there too, hoping for the same scraps. Today the area was empty and she felt a small relief. She reached the bin, her fingers trembling slightly from cold and anticipation, and pulled out a loaf that was still mostly intact. It was not fresh, but it would keep her fed for a day, and that was enough. With the bread tucked under her arm, Lena continued her journey. She had learned to carry everything of value close to her, to avoid leaving anything behind that could be taken. Her bag, worn and patched, held a few essentials: a small notebook she had found, a pen, some old clothes, and a few coins she had managed to save. These items were her lifeline, her small treasures in a world that had taken so much from her. By midday, Lena was moving through the busier parts of the city, where office workers and tourists mingled, where the air was thick with noise and motion. She stayed alert, weaving through crowds, careful not to draw attention. She knew the dangers of the city well: pickpockets, aggressive strangers, and the occasional cruel person who saw homeless people as nothing more than a nuisance. She had learned to avoid confrontation, to keep her head down, and to trust her instincts. Her stomach grumbled, reminding her that the bread would not last long. She found a quiet corner near a fountain and sat down, breaking off pieces of the loaf and savoring each bite. It was not a meal to enjoy, but a meal to survive. As she ate, she watched the people around her, noting their expressions, their hurried movements, their oblivion to her presence. She wondered what it would be like to live without fear, to move through the world without constantly calculating risks. After finishing her bread, Lena rested for a moment, leaning against the cold stone of the fountain. She closed her eyes briefly, letting the noise of the city wash over her. In those moments, she allowed herself to dream, to imagine a life where she was safe and cared for. But the reality returned quickly, harsh and unyielding. She could not afford to linger too long, not with the threats of the streets always looming. She rose and continued on, her senses heightened as she moved. Lena had a routine, but it was flexible, changing with the needs of survival. She checked alleyways, watched for anyone in trouble, and sometimes helped where she could. Despite her own hardships, she could not ignore the suffering around her. It was part of who she was, a survivor, yes, but also someone who retained a spark of kindness in a world that often tried to extinguish it. As the afternoon passed, Lena made her way toward the riverfront, a place she sometimes went when the city felt overwhelming. The sound of water was soothing, a reminder that there was still beauty in the world. She sat on a low wall watching the sunlight dance on the rippling surface and allowed herself a rare moment of peace. But even here she remained vigilant, her eyes scanning the crowds and the paths, ready to react to anything unusual. It was there, near the river, that she first noticed him, a young boy, no more than 10, wandering away from the group of people he was with. Lena's instincts kicked in immediately. Something felt wrong. He looked lost, confused, and unaware of the dangers around him. Her heart quickened, but not with fear for herself, fear for him. She had learned to read people quickly, to sense when someone needed help, and this boy did. Without hesitation, Lena moved closer, keeping a careful distance so as not to alarm him. She observed him, noting the busy street nearby, the oncoming traffic, and the people bustling about. Every step he took seemed riskier than the last, and she knew she could not wait for someone else to notice. In her world, waiting could mean disaster. She had to act. As she approached, she called out softly, "Hey, are you lost?" The boy turned, startled, his eyes wide with fear. Lena's voice was gentle, calm, reassuring. She stepped closer, extending a hand in friendship rather than command. The boy hesitated, then slowly moved toward her, sensing her genuine concern. Lena's mind raced, calculating the best way to get him to safety without causing panic. She remembered the streets, the alleys, the places where danger could appear without warning. Every decision had to be precise, every move intentional. She guided him toward a quieter area, keeping him close and speaking softly, offering comfort. The boy began to relax, trusting her instincts even if he did not know her. It was a small victory, but for Lena, it was profound. She had acted without thinking of herself, driven by a sense of duty and compassion that had never left her despite her own suffering. In that moment, she felt alive in a way she had not felt in a long time. She realized that her courage, honed by years of surviving the streets, could make a real difference in someone else's life. And for Lena, that realization was powerful, grounding her in a world that often tried to push her down. The day continued, and Lena stayed with the boy, guiding him until his worried father arrived. Relief and gratitude shone in the man's eyes, and he thanked her repeatedly, but Lena simply nodded and smiled, hiding the exhaustion and hunger she still carried. She had done what she had to do, and that was enough for her. As she walked away back into the shadows of the city, she felt a quiet pride. She had survived another day, yes, but she had also acted with bravery and heart. Night began to fall, casting long shadows over the streets. Lena found her usual shelter under the bridge, tired but alive. She ate a small portion of the bread she had saved and wrapped herself in her thin blanket. Watching the city lights flicker against the darkness, she thought of the boy she had helped, of the small impact she could make, and for a moment she allowed herself to dream again, not just of survival but of a life where her courage could change more than just one day. One life. As she closed her eyes, the sounds of the city continued around her. Distant car horns, the hum of conversations, footsteps echoing in the night. Lena knew that tomorrow would bring the same struggles, the same hunger, the same cold. But she also knew that she had something stronger than fear, hope, bravery, and an unshakable spirit that refused to be broken. And in that hope, she found the strength to keep moving, to keep fighting, and to keep believing that one day her life could be more than just survival. The morning was bright, and the city streets buzzed with life. Lena had been awake before dawn, as always, moving carefully through the empty alleyways and quiet roads. She had grown used to the rhythm of the city, The sounds of footsteps, distant car horns, and the occasional shout that reminded her she was not alone. Hunger gnawed at her, but her mind was alert, focused on the day ahead. She had learned that every day could bring danger, opportunity, or both, and she could not afford to be careless. Not far from where Lena wandered, a man with an air of authority and wealth stepped out of a sleek black car. He was Mr. Donovan, a billionaire known for his business empire and charitable acts. Today, he was accompanied by his young son, Ethan, a curious boy who was full of energy and questions. They had come to the city for a short visit, a break from the structured life they lived in their sprawling mansion. The city was a playground of sights and sounds for Ethan, a place where the ordinary felt exciting and new. Ethan's attention was easily captured. He noticed street performers, food carts, and colorful signs. Mr. Donovan kept a watchful eye on his son, knowing the boy's curiosity often led him to trouble. Yet even with all his caution, the city's unpredictability could be overwhelming. The crowd, the noise, and the constant movement of people made it easy for someone small and distracted to slip away unnoticed. Meanwhile, Lena moved closer to the area where the bustling crowd had gathered. She kept herself in the shadows, her eyes scanning the scene, her mind sharp. She had noticed a group of children playing nearby, and instinctively she was drawn to those who seemed vulnerable or lost. Her instincts were honed by years of surviving the streets, and today, they would lead her to something unexpected. Ethan had wandered a few steps away from his father, fascinated by a street artist creating colorful paintings. He was so absorbed in the activity that he did not notice how far he had strayed. The crowd swirled around him, and the danger of being lost in the busy city streets grew with every passing second. Lena's eyes caught the sight of the boy, and her heart skipped a beat. She immediately sensed that he was alone and at risk. Without hesitation, Lena moved closer, keeping herself hidden but maintaining a clear view of the boy. She calculated her steps carefully, anticipating obstacles and the flow of people. Her mind worked quickly. If the boy continued wandering, he could easily bump into traffic or worse, be approached by someone with ill intent. Lena knew she had to act fast. As she drew near, she called out softly, her voice calm and steady. "Hey, are you okay?" Ethan turned, startled, his eyes wide with uncertainty. He looked around, confused by the sudden voice in the midst of the bustling crowd. Lena stepped closer, crouching slightly to appear less intimidating, and smiled gently. "You don't want to be here alone. Come with me, I'll help you." Ethan hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. There was something in Lena's presence, a confidence and warmth that made him feel safe despite the crowd. He took her hand, and together they moved toward a quieter street, away from the noise and the pressing crowd. Lena's mind raced as she guided him, aware of every person around them, every potential threat. Back near the main path, Mr. Donovan noticed his son was missing. Panic rose immediately. He called out Ethan's name, his voice sharp but controlled. His heart pounded as he scanned the crowd, eyes darting in every direction. The fear of losing his son, even for a moment, was overwhelming. He moved quickly, pushing through the people, searching desperately. His mind raced with possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. Meanwhile, Lena kept Ethan close, speaking softly to calm him. "We'll find your dad." "Don't worry," she assured him. Ethan clung to her hand, trusting the stranger who had appeared when he needed help the most. Lena's mind worked like a machine, thinking through the best way to reunite the boy with his father while keeping him safe. The streets were unpredictable, and she knew one wrong turn could lead to disaster. They reached a small park area, quieter and less crowded. Lena guided Ethan to a bench and crouched down to speak with him at eye level. "Tell me where your dad is. Can you see him?" Ethan shook his head, his small face worried. Lena nodded, understanding that fear could cloud judgment even in a child. She decided the best approach was to move slowly, keep him calm, and create a path back to his father without drawing unnecessary attention. As they moved, Lena's sharp eyes spotted Mr. Donovan searching frantically. Relief and determination crossed his face as he finally caught sight of the boy and the girl holding his hand. He ran toward them, calling Ethan's name. The boy's face lit up with recognition, and he broke into a small run, still holding Lena's hand. Mr. Donovan reached them quickly, scooping Ethan into his arms. "Thank you," Mr. Donovan said, his voice heavy with relief and gratitude. He turned to Lena, noticing her disheveled clothes, the dirt on her hands, and the tired but determined look in her eyes. "You saved him." How can I ever thank you? Lena shook her head, smiling faintly. She was not used to such attention, nor did she seek it. It's okay, she said simply. I just did what I had to do. Mr. Donovan looked at her, studying the girl who had stepped into danger to save his son. There was a mixture of admiration and curiosity in his eyes. You're very brave, he said. Most people wouldn't even notice what was happening. Lena shrugged, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I notice things, she replied. I have to. The crowd had begun to disperse, unaware of the small drama that had just unfolded. Lena felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. She had acted with courage, and the boy was safe. Yet, as Mr. Donovan continued to look at her, she sensed that this moment might change things in ways she could not yet understand. He spoke again, his tone softer now. You shouldn't be out here alone like this. It's dangerous. Would you like a place to stay for a while? Lena blinked, taken aback. Offers of help were rare, and she had learned to be cautious. People often had hidden motives, and trusting someone too quickly could lead to betrayal. Yet there was something in Mr. Donovan's demeanor that felt genuine, a sincerity that she could not ignore. She hesitated, unsure how to respond. I don't know, she said finally, her voice quiet. I'm used to taking care of myself. Mr. Donovan nodded, understanding. I can give you food, shelter, anything you need. Just think about it. You've done a brave thing today. Don't let this world break you. Lena looked at him, studying his face, seeing the concern and respect there. She knew she had a choice. Continue the life she had known, struggling and surviving each day, or accept the help of someone who had the means to change her circumstances. The thought was both frightening and intriguing. Ethan, still in his father's arms, looked up at Lena and smiled, a small gesture of gratitude and trust. Lena felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't felt in years. In that moment, she realized that her actions had not only saved a boy, but had also opened a door to a possibility she had never dared to imagine. As Mr. Donovan led Ethan away, he turned back once more. Think about my offer, he said gently. I'll be here. Lena nodded, unsure what the future held, but feeling a spark of hope that had been absent for a long time. She watched them disappear into the crowd, the city continuing its relentless rhythm around her, and felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had acted bravely, and now the world had noticed. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Lena moved through the streets with heightened awareness, her mind still replaying the morning's events. She thought about the boy, the fear in his eyes and the relief when they were reunited. She thought about Mr. Donovan, about the unexpected kindness and concern he had shown. It was a new experience, one that made her question the boundaries she had placed around herself. As evening approached, Lena found a quiet alley to rest, her body tired, but her spirit awake. She unpacked a small portion of food she had saved and ate slowly, savoring each bite. She reflected on the day, on the courage it had taken to act, and on the strange feeling of hope that had begun to bloom in her chest. The city had been cruel for so long, but today had shown her a glimpse of something different, something that suggested life could change in unexpected ways. Night fell, and Lena found her usual place under a bridge. She wrapped herself in her thin blanket, staring up at the stars above the city. The events of the day played in her mind, a mixture of fear, bravery, and the first taste of possibility she had felt in years. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she also knew that she had the strength to face them, and perhaps, just perhaps, she could find a way out of the life that had defined her for so long. As she drifted into a restless sleep, the sounds of the city surrounding her, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a sense that her life was on the brink of change, and that the bravery she had shown today might be the first step toward a future she had only dared to dream about. The day after the rescue, Lena woke to the cold morning air and the familiar hum of the city. Even with the memory of the boy's frightened eyes and the relief on his father's face, she could not shake her doubts. Offers of help had come before, and they had never ended well. People promised safety, food, or work, but soon the real motives appeared, and Lena learned to rely only on herself. Yet something about Mr. Donovan's offer felt different. There was sincerity in his voice, concern in his eyes, and a gravity that made her pause. She spent the morning wandering the streets, careful and alert, replaying the events in her mind. Every step was measured, every alley watched. She had become an expert at navigating the city, predicting the movements of strangers and avoiding danger. Hunger gnawed at her, but she pushed it aside, focusing instead on the decision she had to make. Accepting help meant stepping into a world she had never known, one that could be beautiful or treacherous. She weighed the risks against the possibility of change. By mid-morning, Mr. Donovan returned to the streets where they had met. This time he approached slowly, his expression patient and calm. He called her name softly, not to startle but to invite. Lena felt a rush of tension, her instincts screaming caution, but something deeper urged her to listen. She stepped out of the shadows, her hands nervously gripping her worn jacket. "You came," he said simply, a small smile breaking through his serious demeanor. There was no expectation in his tone, only an acknowledgement that she had made a choice to meet him. Lena nodded, unsure of what to say. Words felt heavy, weighted with suspicion and hope. I don't usually accept help," she said carefully, her voice low but firm. "People don't mean what they say." Mr. Donovan's eyes softened. "I understand, and I won't force anything. I just want to give you a chance. A safe place, food, and a chance to go back to school if you want. No one can take that from you." Lena considered the offer. Safety was a concept that felt foreign, almost like a dream she could not fully grasp. Going back to school seemed impossible, but the idea of stability, even for a short time, sparked something inside her that had been dormant. She studied his face, searching for any sign of deceit, but found none. There was only genuine concern. "I'll think about it," she said at last. It was not a commitment, but it was more than she had allowed herself to give before. Mr. Donovan nodded, respecting her caution. "That's all I ask. Take your time." He handed her a small card with his phone number and a place where she could come if she chose to. "No pressure. Just know that the offer is real." Lena tucked the card into her pocket, her mind swirling with possibilities and doubts. She continued through the streets, each step filled with a mixture of hope and fear. The city seemed different now, less threatening, more like a place where something unexpected could happen. She had saved a boy, acted bravely, and been recognized for it, but the reality of her life had not changed. That was still her challenge, to decide whether to trust someone and step into the unknown. Over the next few days, Lena returned to her usual routine, but she found herself thinking about Mr. Donovan and his offer more often. She observed the city with sharper eyes, noticing both danger and kindness, realizing that the world was not entirely cruel. People rushed past her, but some smiled, some held doors, some treated her with small gestures of decency. It was a reminder that not everyone was indifferent, and perhaps there were people who could be trusted. One evening, Lena found herself standing at the corner of a quiet street, the card in her hand, thinking about the boy she had saved, and the life that might be waiting for her. The temptation of safety, of warmth, of learning and growing was strong. Yet the fear of losing control, of being manipulated, of disappointment weighed equally heavily. She realized that making this choice would test her courage in a way the streets never had. Finally, with a deep breath, she made her decision. She would go to the place Mr. Donovan had indicated, not because she trusted completely, but because she trusted herself to handle whatever came next. She had faced the harshness of the city, survived the nights alone, and now she would face something different, the challenge of a world she had only glimpsed from afar. When she arrived at the location, she was surprised by how different it felt. It was not overwhelming or intimidating. It was welcoming in a way that made her heart race. The staff greeted her with kindness, explaining that she had a safe place to sleep, meals would be provided, and there would be support for education if she chose to continue. Lena listened carefully, absorbing each detail, measuring each word against her expectations. The first night in the new environment was strange. The warmth of the bed, the quiet of a protected space, the absence of constant hunger and fear all felt unnatural. Lena lay awake, her mind racing with memories of the streets, the dangers she had avoided, and the courage that had brought her here. She realized that bravery was not just about facing immediate danger, but also about trusting enough to accept change. Days turned into weeks, and Lena slowly began to adapt. The initial discomfort of new surroundings gave way to a cautious sense of belonging. She explored the place, learning the routines, meeting the staff and other children who were also seeking refuge. She was careful in forming connections, but she could not ignore the warmth that came from being treated with care and respect. Mr. Donovan visited occasionally, always patient, always gentle in his approach. He never pressured her, but he took an interest in her progress, her thoughts, and her feelings. Lena found herself slowly opening up, sharing her experiences, her hopes, and her fears. She realized that trust was not given blindly, but earned and nurtured through consistent respect and kindness. One afternoon, as Lena sat in the common room reading a book she had borrowed, Mr. Donovan entered with Ethan by his side. The boy ran to her smiling and hugged her without hesitation. "Thank you again," he said, his voice full of innocence and gratitude. Lena smiled back, feeling a warmth that was unfamiliar but comforting. In that moment, she understood that her actions had consequences beyond the immediate, that courage and kindness could ripple outward in unexpected ways. Mr. Donovan observed silently, seeing the connection between the two. He knew that Lena's bravery was genuine, that her heart was strong despite the hardships she had endured. He also understood that the path ahead would not be simple for her, that trust and adaptation would take time, and that patience was essential. Lena continued to navigate her new life carefully. She attended lessons offered, participated in activities, and gradually built relationships with those around her. She was not without challenges. The shadows of her past sometimes resurfaced. Memories of hunger, fear, and betrayal lingered. But she faced each day with the same courage that had led her to rescue Ethan. And each small victory reinforced her confidence. She began to dream again, not just of survival, but of a life where she could grow, learn, and perhaps help others as she had helped the boy. The city outside continued its relentless rhythm, but Lena had found a place within it where she could breathe, where she could be seen and valued. The gratitude of a saved life, the kindness of a man willing to offer her a chance, and the innocence of a boy who trusted her, all combined to create a fragile but growing sense of hope. Evenings were often spent reflecting on the streets she had left behind. Lena knew that returning was impossible, that the life she had known was behind her, but she did not regret the past. Every struggle had shaped her, every challenge had built her resilience, and now, with a safe place to stay and opportunities to explore her potential, she realized that her courage could lead to something extraordinary. One quiet night, Lena sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker against the darkness. She thought of Mr. Donovan, of Ethan, and of the journey she had begun. She knew that trust, bravery, and perseverance would continue to guide her. The streets had taught her lessons of survival, but this new chapter offered lessons of growth, kindness, and possibility. And Lena, who had faced the harshest realities, understood that true courage was not only in the acts of rescue, but also in the willingness to step into the unknown and embrace the life that could be waiting for her. Lena had settled into the new place, but the adjustment was not as easy as she had imagined. The warmth of a bed, the comfort of regular meals, and the presence of people who cared for her safety were things she had never experienced before. And while they were comforting, they also felt strange and unsettling. Every corner of the house, every sound, every routine reminded her of how different this world was from the streets she had once called home. It was beautiful, yes, but it was also intimidating. Her first days were filled with learning the routines, when to eat, when to attend lessons, and how to navigate spaces that felt like they belonged to people who had never faced hunger or fear. The smallest details fascinated and confused her. The softness of the sheets, the sound of a shower running without the need to guard her privacy, and the abundance of food that could be eaten without worry. She was grateful, yet the unfamiliarity made her cautious, her instincts on alert even in safety. Lena's interactions with others were cautious at first. She had been on her own for so long that forming trust was not easy. Some of the other children welcomed her openly, while others kept their distance, curious about this girl who had survived the streets. She found herself observing, listening, and measuring every word before speaking. She had learned that careful attention and patience could reveal who was trustworthy and who was not. School was another challenge. Lena had missed years of formal education, and while she was intelligent and observant, the structure of lessons, rules, and expectations were foreign to her. At first, she struggled to keep up, feeling embarrassed and out of place. But her determination and resilience, honed through years of survival, drove her forward. She asked questions quietly, took notes carefully, and slowly began to understand the rhythm of learning again. The biggest shock was not the lessons themselves, but the social world surrounding them. Lena observed the interactions between other children, their ease with wealth, their casual talk of vacations, gadgets, and luxuries that she had never known. She felt a pang of alienation, a reminder that she came from a world where every day had been a fight to survive. At first, she kept her distance, afraid that speaking up would expose her differences too sharply. Yet, there were moments of connection that surprised her. Some children were genuinely curious, asking about her life, and she found herself answering carefully, revealing fragments of her story without letting them see the scars that lay beneath. She realized that people could be kind, that curiosity could be genuine, and that the world was not entirely divided into those who were cruel and those who were not. This understanding slowly built a bridge between her past and her present. Mr. Donovan visited frequently, offering support without pressure. He never demanded that she fit into his world instantly. Instead, he encouraged her to explore at her own pace. Lena appreciated this patience, understanding that true kindness did not come with conditions. She began to see that change was possible, but it required courage and persistence. Just as surviving the streets had required, the media's attention had begun to notice her story, though it was still quiet at first. Occasionally, articles mentioned the brave girl who had saved a billionaire's son, painting her as a hero. Lena felt conflicted. On one hand, she understood the admiration, but on the other, she feared that exposure could attract unwanted attention. She had learned to navigate the world carefully, and public scrutiny was a challenge she was unprepared for. She remained cautious, choosing when and how to appear, understanding that attention was a double-edged sword. Life in the new environment brought challenges beyond social adaptation. Lena still struggled with guilt and memories of those she had left behind on the streets. Friends she had relied on, even in the harshest conditions, were absent now, and she wondered about their fates. She sometimes felt torn between two worlds, the one she was building and the one she had survived. These moments of reflection were bittersweet, reminding her that even as she moved forward, the past remained a part of her. She began to explore her own interests and talents. Books became a refuge, writing a way to express thoughts she had never spoken aloud. Her curiosity, which had helped her survive, now helped her learn about history, science, and the arts. She discovered that knowledge was power, and for the first time she saw education not as a distant dream, but as a tangible opportunity. One afternoon, Mr. Donovan brought Ethan to spend time with her. The boy had become fond of Lena, and their bond grew stronger. They played games, explored creative activities, and shared stories. Ethan's trust and openness reminded Lena of the importance of connection, of letting others in despite the fear of loss. She realized that courage was not only about facing danger, but also about embracing relationships, about allowing oneself to be vulnerable in a world that could be both kind and harsh. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Some children questioned her presence, whispering about her background, her clothes, and her differences. Lena learned to navigate these subtle tensions, using patience and observation rather than confrontation. She realized that the world beyond the streets had its own form of struggle, one that required emotional intelligence, diplomacy, and inner strength. Each day was a lesson, each interaction a test of her adaptability. The first night she spent in her room alone, she reflected on how much had changed. The silence of her room, the absence of street noise, and the comfort of a secure environment were luxuries she had never known. Yet she understood that comfort could bring new challenges: the temptation to relax too much, the fear of dependency, and the struggle to maintain the independence she had fought for all her life. She resolved to balance gratitude with caution, openness with self-preservation. Over the following weeks, Lena began to develop routines that blended her old instincts with new opportunities. She took long walks around the property, observing nature, the city skyline in the distance, and the lives of people who moved in ease through their days. She practiced small acts of kindness for those around her, realizing that compassion was not just survival but a way to connect and influence positively. Each day she learned more about the world she had entered and about herself. As Lena continued to grow in confidence, she began to see the broader picture. The challenges she faced in adapting to a new social environment, navigating education, and dealing with attention were tests of her courage in a different form. Her past had prepared her for survival, This new world required resilience, patience, and emotional strength. She realized that bravery was not only about saving someone in immediate danger, but also about facing the discomfort of change and embracing the unknown. One evening, Lena and Ethan sat by the window, watching the city lights shimmer across the horizon. Ethan asked her about the streets, about how she had survived, and Lena spoke carefully, choosing her words with honesty and clarity. She did not hide the hardships, but she also emphasized the lessons she had learned: resourcefulness, courage, and the importance of hope. Ethan listened with wide eyes, absorbing her story and understanding the depth of her experience. Mr. Donovan observed from a distance, silently acknowledging her growth. He knew that Lena's journey was far from over, that the path ahead would continue to test her resilience. Yet he also saw the determination in her eyes, the intelligence in her decisions, and the courage that had carried her through the streets and into his world. He understood that her potential was immense, and that her ability to navigate both worlds would define her future. Lena's nights became moments of reflection, her thoughts oscillating between gratitude, fear, and anticipation. She recognized that adaptation was not immediate. It was a process that required patience and self-awareness. Each day she confronted new social dynamics, learned new skills, and built relationships cautiously. Through it all, she maintained the strength and instincts that had kept her alive, merging them with the opportunities now available to her. Slowly, Lena began to understand that she could exist in this new world without losing herself. The streets had shaped her, but they did not define her entirely. She could embrace new experiences, learn and grow, while honoring the lessons of her past. The balance was delicate, but she was determined to find it. She realized that courage was a continuous choice, a daily act of perseverance and adaptation. The city outside continued its relentless pace, the lights and sounds a constant reminder of the world she had once navigated alone. Inside, Lena built a sanctuary of learning, connection, and resilience. The bond with Ethan strengthened. The guidance from Mr. Donovan provided support, and her own inner strength continued to grow. She understood that this chapter was just one part of her journey, and that each day offered new challenges and opportunities for growth. By the end of the month, Lena had begun to feel a sense of belonging, tentative but real. She knew that the future remained uncertain, that challenges would continue to arise, but she also knew that she had the courage, intelligence, and resilience to face them. Her life had shifted from mere survival to meaningful existence, from fear to cautious hope, and from isolation to connection. And as she closed her eyes each night, she felt a quiet confidence that the bravery which had once saved a boy on the streets could now guide her toward a life filled with possibility, growth, and hope. Months passed, and Lena had grown accustomed to the rhythms of her new life. She still carried the instincts of survival, but they were now paired with curiosity, hope, and determination. The warmth of a home, regular meals, and the support of people who cared had transformed her existence in ways she could scarcely have imagined when she roamed the streets alone. She had built relationships cautiously, learned new skills, and discovered a part of herself that had been buried beneath hardship and fear. One afternoon, as she organized some books in the library, Lena noticed an envelope addressed to her. It was formal, neat, and unlike any letter she had ever received. She opened it carefully and read the contents. The word shocked her. There was a matter involving Mr. Donovan's family that required her immediate attention. She felt a mix of fear and curiosity, her heart racing as she tried to process what it could mean. She had come to trust the billionaire who had changed her life, but this letter suggested that something unexpected and potentially dangerous was about to unfold. She sought out Mr. Donovan, who was in his study with Ethan. He looked up as she entered, noticing her apprehensive expression. "What is it?" he asked, sensing that the letter had unsettled her. "I received this," Lena said, handing him the envelope. His brow furrowed as he read, and a tense silence filled the room. After a moment, he looked at her seriously. "This is important. It concerns our family, and it's delicate. I think you should be aware because it may involve you indirectly." Lena's mind raced. She had learned to face danger in the streets, but the uncertainty of this situation felt different. The risks were hidden, the stakes higher, and the outcomes unknown. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the courage that had carried her through so many trials before. "I'm ready," she said firmly. I'll do whatever I can to help. Over the next days, Lena learned the shocking truth. There was a long-hidden issue within Mr. Donovan's business and family affairs that required discretion and courage. Some people who had once seemed trustworthy had hidden agendas, seeking to take advantage of the situation. Lena was astonished by the complexity, the layers of secrecy, and the stakes involved. Yet she also realized that her instincts, honed by years of navigating danger, made her uniquely equipped to face the challenge. She worked closely with Mr. Donovan, analyzing information, observing patterns, and providing insights that others overlooked. Her perspective, shaped by life on the streets, allowed her to notice details that were invisible to those accustomed to wealth and comfort. She became an unexpected yet vital part of the effort, earning respect through her intelligence, courage, and dedication. Ethan remained a source of inspiration and motivation. His trust and affection reminded Lena of the importance of connection, of fighting not just for herself but for others. She spent time with him when she could, keeping a sense of normalcy amidst the tension and complexity of the unfolding situation. Their bond deepened, founded on mutual respect and shared experiences that transcended age and background. As the situation progressed, Lena faced moments of fear and doubt. The revelations were unsettling, and the threats, though not always visible, were real. Yet she approached each challenge with a combination of caution and bravery, refusing to be paralyzed by uncertainty. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. One evening, the culmination of events brought everything to a head. Lena discovered evidence of betrayal and manipulation within the circle of people surrounding Mr. Donovan's family. The realization shocked her, but it also provided a path forward. She carefully presented her findings, explaining her reasoning, her observations, and the potential consequences. Mr. Donovan listened intently, recognizing the clarity and precision that Lena brought to the situation. Her involvement was pivotal. Actions taken based on her insights prevented serious consequences, safeguarded the family, and restored a measure of stability. The relief and gratitude expressed by Mr. Donovan were profound. He had always admired her bravery, but now he saw the full extent of her intelligence, resilience, and character. Lena had become more than a girl who had once wandered the streets. She was a trusted ally, a courageous and insightful individual whose actions had tangible, positive outcomes. The aftermath was a mixture of relief, reflection, and quiet celebration. The immediate danger had passed, but the experience left a lasting impact on Lena. She had faced a complex, high-stakes situation and emerged stronger, more confident, and deeply aware of her own capabilities. She realized that the courage she had relied on in survival now applied to navigating a world filled with different challenges, requiring wisdom, patience, and strategic thinking. Lena's bond with Mr. Donovan and Ethan deepened further. Trust, once difficult to give, had become a shared foundation. She had proven her bravery and intelligence, and in turn, they had provided her with guidance, opportunities, and a safe environment to grow. The relationship was reciprocal, grounded in respect, shared experiences, and mutual care. Life began to settle into a new rhythm. Lena continued her education, explored her interests, and nurtured relationships. She became a role model for others, showing that courage, perseverance, and intelligence could transcend background and circumstance. The streets that had once defined her life were now a distant memory, replaced by the knowledge that bravery and heart could shape a future beyond mere survival. One quiet night, Lena stood by the window looking out at the city that had once been a harsh and unforgiving place. She reflected on the journey she had traveled, the nights of hunger and fear, the moment she saved a young boy, the gradual trust and adaptation to a new world, and the shocking challenges that had tested her courage and intelligence. She realized that each step, each act of bravery and resilience had led her to this moment. She understood that life was unpredictable, filled with both hardship and opportunity, but she also knew that she possessed the courage, insight, and determination to navigate whatever came next. The experiences she had endured were not scars to be hidden, but strength to be carried forward. Lena had transformed from a girl surviving on the streets into a young woman, capable of influencing the world around her. As she watched the city lights shimmer against the night sky, Lena felt a quiet sense of accomplishment and hope. She had faced fear, embraced opportunity, and discovered the depth of her own strength. The boy she had saved, the billionaire who had trusted her, and the challenges she had overcome were reminders that bravery and heart could shape a life in extraordinary ways. In the end, Lena's journey was not only about survival but about transformation. She had proven that courage, intelligence, and kindness could overcome adversity. The shocks, the challenges, and the unexpected twists had not broken her. They had revealed her true strength. She was no longer defined by the streets but by her choices, her resilience, and her capacity to act with bravery and wisdom in a complex and unpredictable world. And with that understanding, she knew that the future, however uncertain, was hers to shape.